Hello, I'm Phil Nash. I've put together a mini-series of 4 videos to give you a few tips on presenting technical content online. Now, maybe you're a seasoned conference speaker, or maybe you're completely new to public speaking. Either way, most of us are completely unfamiliar with speaking to an audience that we can't see, while we're sitting at home or in an office, looking at a screen. So we're going to cover the psychology of making that adjustment in this video. In the next videos, we'll look at how to set up your environment, what equipment you might need, and what you should think about when creating slides or demos. So let's look at the psychology. And this is really where our overall title, Talking into the Void, really hits home. Especially if you're used to speaking to a live physical audience, talking to your screen can really feel like your words are just going into the void. And that could be unnerving to begin with. But don't worry, we've got some tips to help you get back up to speed. First, it's worth thinking about what the problem really is. So with anything of this nature, your experience is likely a bit different from mine or the next person's, but there are some common themes. In a way, you might think it's like talking to an empty room. And while there is a bit of that, I think that might actually steer us in the wrong direction. Now, if you have ever spoken to an empty room, perhaps at a conference before your real talk starts, there is still a certain ambience that can put you into that presenter mode. And that's one of the cues that we're missing here. We need to create others instead. So a lot of this is about unlearning old habits, particularly if we are experienced at speaking at live events, and then building some new ones. And we'll talk about how to do that in just a moment. But first, another aspect that we miss from speaking to a physical audience is the feedback loop. As humans, we have what some have called an open loop communication style. Now, we might feel like we're up on stage, broadcasting our speech, with occasional questions coming back. But in fact, our communication is constantly two-way. And the more experienced we are, the more we tend to lean on that, even depend on it. Of course, when our audience is online, the same people might still be there, but we lose a lot, if not all of that. Some video conferencing tools will show you at least some of your audience. You might get some of that reaction back, but it's still not quite the same. In other cases, especially if you're going out over something like YouTube or Twitch, you probably don't see anyone. And if you did, there will be considerable latency due to the streaming. So that's the problem. Here's a few practical things we can do that can help. First, get some sort of feedback as early as possible in your presentation, especially if you don't see anyone. Now, usually there is some mechanism to receive textual Q&A. So you can ask if people have questions that they're going to be looking to have answered during your talk. Or maybe conduct polls, which can be a great way to start the session and break the ice. Depending on the nature of your material, there can be other online collaboration tools that you can use to help establish a connection with your audience. If you're feeling awkward when you start, because you're not even sure that anyone is listening, or what they're thinking if they are, the moment you get some sort of feedback from them, that all melts away. You should also try looking at the camera as much as possible. Now, this is akin to making eye contact with your audience. You might not see them, but making that conscious effort to look at them can also help you to visualize them actually being there, as if they're just the other side of a thin door. Now, I'm reading a script here, which makes it a bit more difficult to maintain that eye contact, but the more extemporaneous you can be, the more you can establish that connection. To help with that, you might even want to add eyes to your webcam. You can get these sticky googly eyes quite cheaply. That might sound cheesy, but that can actually help you to relate to your webcam. So these are all things that you can do while you're presenting, but most of the difference is going to come in how you prepare it. Now, you should always rehearse your talk, of course, although some of us who have been doing it for a few years might think that we can get away with little to no run-throughs. But remember, this is a big reset. So even if that has been your habit, consider this a new thing. You'll need to get used to delivering your talk to a screen. But the best part is that looks pretty much the same in your rehearsal as in the real event. Just make sure that your environment is set up as close as possible to how it'll be on the day as well, to maximise your brain's tendency to anchor mental resources to your setting. And we'll discuss more about how to set up your environment in the next video. So as during your talk, look into the camera as much as possible. Now, there might not actually be anybody there at this stage, but getting used to doing that and making it another anchor, another habit, will make it much easier in the real thing. Also, try to do at least one full dry run, like a dress rehearsal if you like. You don't actually need to dress up, although if you plan on wearing something specific on the day, that could be a good idea too. But the point is, you should try to treat it as much like the real thing as possible. Deliver the whole talk from start to finish. Try to be in time. And if you make a mistake, plough on as if you would for real. If you think of that perfect joke that you want to quickly add a slide about, resist the temptation. Probably wasn't that funny anyway. And the final tip is, again, something that we can all benefit from even with live talks. Focusing on your pacing and pausing. Scattering a few well-timed pauses through your material can really grab people's attention, keep them engaged, can drive points home. But it can also help to ground you and make you feel in control, and that in turn can feed back into your pacing. Now, many speakers will tend to rush through their material on the day, but even if you've beaten that habit, you might find that this new style of presenting brings some of those old habits back. So pay extra attention to pacing and pausing. And that has been a few tips on how to ease into the transition of speaking online. Do tune into the next few episodes as we look at further practical aspects of this new normal.